People of God, I am glad that I can speak to you for a brief moment at this service. The circuit breaker measures to arrest the spread of COVID-19 are in force. So we do thank God that we are still able to worship together, albeit in a very different way. We are thankful that we are able to form a very trim project team to record and make available these online services. I'm very grateful to the skillful and dedicated work of the project crew here in the cathedral and also in our parishes and deaneries. We are having a very different experience in not being able to physically gather. And that experience is harder for some than for others, so my empathy are with all. It's a different experience, but I'm convinced that God is actively at work in the midst of the adversity and all the adjustments that are entailed. God is at work. He's reaching new lives with the gospel of his Son, Jesus Christ. And he is making us thankful for what we so easily take for granted. God is helping us to hear his voice because in this time of less social interaction, less words, less activities, we are able perhaps to slow down, to pause, and to hear God and to seek God more ardently. And so my prayer is that God will grant a silence in our hearts, a silence in which we can hear his still small voice saying, "This, the cross, is how much I love you." And I believe, dear friends, God is also creating a longing for himself, that you and I, in this time where we don't have the usual expressions of worship, the usual rites, we develop a longing for God. And I commend Psalm 63 to you. It helps me to know how I can use this time to thirst for the living God. And in particular, a longing for sacramental communion with the Lord. I would like you to know that given the theological and ecclesiastical framework in which we, as Anglicans, practice the sacrament of Holy Communion, and given the critical need of the hour for our nation to contain and overcome the spread of COVID-19, to restrict our interaction to just our own household. Given these two things, I have called all Anglicans to voluntarily forego Holy Communion for the remaining month of April until the 4th of May. I know it is hard. We all value communing with the Lord through the sacrament. It was an anguishing decision for me that we should voluntarily forego the practice of the sacrament. And it's just for this temporary period, but I trust that the Lord will grant us spiritual communion with himself and also the assurance of his spiritual protection, even without the benefit of Holy Communion in this temporary time. Dear brothers and sisters, let us do this. We abstain, we forego communion. Let's do this with faith in God, that He will still encounter and empower us in other ways than sacramental communion, though we long for it. Let us do so with faith in God and with love for our neighbor, for our fellow residents in Singapore, so we minimize the risk of the virus spreading. We temporarily abstain and forego something which is very precious to us because we want to prevent suffering. And also we want to prevent the loss of lives in our society. I believe this honors God at the present time. Please know that during this period of April leading up and including May 4th, please know that during this period, communion to the critically sick and to a few persons jointly to meet a pressing pastoral need, such communion can still be duly administered on a case-by-case basis according to the discretion of your vicar or priest in charge. All safe distancing measures must, of course, be duly complied with. And so you are experiencing our Maundy Thursday service. We come to these services that we cherish so much, Maundy Thursday, Good Friday, Easter, without the aid of being physically present and without the rites that we normally associate with these services. We will continue to be reminded of the symbols, but my friends, we will not be deterred from reliving the historical events of the Lord's Supper, of the crucifixion, and of the resurrection that have brought us so great a salvation. So in this Maundy Thursday service, we've kept the symbols, but we will not enact, we will not practice the breaking of bread. We will not partake of Holy Communion. We will miss this. And I, having been brought up in an Anglican family, feel it also very much. We will miss it. But I believe that God will use this longing. He will use this longing to create a new depth, a new reality for us in our walk with God. I'm reminded also that Holy Communion itself is an anticipation of the great banquet when all the saints, all the redeemed people of God, we long for that day of consummation. So now we are not able to practice what reminds us of the hope to come. But even then, let not our hope for God's intervention here and now, let not our hope for the great consummation day when all is well, suffering and disease will be no more, and even death will flee away. Let that longing be real for us. And so I invite you, especially over these few days of Maundy Thursday, Good Friday, Easter, let longing be the posture of our hearts. May our hearts grow with desire for God, desire for His mercy, desire for His outstretched arm to save us from the present darkness and suffering. And let our desire be for the day when we will be forever with the Lord. Through these online services during Holy Week, may you and I encounter the Lord. May we experience His love and strength. And may our hearts be filled with hope. Because as surely as morning comes after the night, the Lord will come to rescue us and usher in a new day.